I went right after 26. I'm thinking like, okay, you're young. This is the time to just bust your ass and work as much as possible, make a dent into the debt that I was in. And I literally worked 7 days a week. I even was looking for one of the Hasidic offices in Lakewood that I could work on Sundays, because it's not even typical to work Sundays. But I ended up finding an office that I worked on Sundays just to work. And again, at the time, I'm like, this is the time for me to work. I'm young, it's the time to work as much as possible and make as big a dent in the debt and also to get some savings. And every practice that I worked at, again, some of them I stayed longer than others. It was important to learn what I liked and what I didn't like. I always knew I wanted to own my own place at the end of the day. That's part of the reason that I picked dentistry, because you get to be your own boss.
Dude, we all have the best time ever to start a small business.
If I'm not gonna be 100% in, I'm not gonna do it.
Come on, man, just be yourself.
Yeah, and
just show up as yourself.
if you don't realize what I'm really about, I'm about freedom, family, and my country. Dr. Gamburg, cheers.
Ilan, that's good.
Ilan, call him Ilan.
Yeah.
If we say Ilan too much, then I get reminded of the Twitter files, and I don't want to derail the conversation from how great of a dentist you are. But maybe we can go there. Maybe we
different
cannot.
Ilan.
We could. It depends on how many bourbons
Or
I have.
Dr. Gamburg, whatever's easier.
Dr. Gamburg just seems more professional to me, because
Sounds good.
the way that we met was awesome. You did a great job, made me feel comfortable, did some really nice work inside my mouth that is not cheap. And I felt good about it, and I felt good about your office.
Appreciate it.
And that's why you're here. And for those people who may watch this, who have not seen Fireside before, and they're your friends, your family, or people who pay attention to your practice, your patients, this show is all predicated on me being a kid who grew up in middle class, lower middle class, I had a great hardworking mother and father, but you go without sometimes. And as I came up, I was a little bit of a troubled kid in school, ADHD, a little wild, a little angry. I've conquered most of those demons nowadays. And, you know, I was kicked out of high school, then went into finance, had very little people who wanted to help me because of my chip. And I always said, why wouldn't more people, once they had a little bit of success, turn around and help the next guy or gal up the ladder? Right. So that is what Evan and I thought about as we launched Fireside. We wanted to provide free content for business owners like yourself. And after meeting with you, after working with you and your staff and your office, I thought you'd be a great guy to come on and tell your story, because it is an interesting one.
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you being here, so thank you.
I appreciate you having me.
It's easy to have good people.
Thank you.
So, a guy who actually grew up from 0 to 12 years old in Israel.
Yes.
Which is really cool. I love Israel. And your parents moved here when you were 12 years old to Marlborough.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood, though, in Israel and your experiences that you remember.
Overall, it was a great childhood. I have a lot of great memories from Israel, from my childhood. My parents, they also, you know, similar situation as yours. They grew up with nothing. They grew up in the Soviet Union. At the time, or, you know, when they grew up, there was very little opportunities for Jews, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism. So you couldn't even get opportunities if you were Jewish in the Soviet Union. It was one country at the time. So they weren't even presented with opportunities that were presented to other Russian citizens. They were only allowed in certain schools, and, you know, all their friends were Jewish, and they were only allowed in certain universities. Like, my parents, both of them were engineers, and the reason was there was only 2 schools in where they lived in Minsk that would take Jews, like, to enroll in the schools there.
That's so crazy. Like, what year was that approximately?
Like 70, like late 60s,
so if you can,
early 70s.
For the listener, you could kind of picture what was going on at that time over in the Soviet Union and Russia.
I mean, it's
crazy.
It still exists, but obviously not to that. And I'm happy the world has Yes, certainly.
Is it for the better, though, with the age shift? Who knows? That's for later in the conversation.
Yes.
So your parents decided to get up and...
They moved to Israel. They knew the opportunities there they're not gonna have good opportunities. The reason they chose Israel, actually at the time, you had to get permission from your parents to move out of the country. And my father's parents basically said, you're either moving to Israel or you're moving nowhere. He felt very strong about the Jewish connection that he had with the country. So my father's parents and my parents both moved to Israel, or all of them, they moved to Israel, and they kind of started a new life. And they became very successful. My father had his own construction company. My mother, she was an engineer. She was a partner in her company, and I had a very good childhood. You could say I was even, I don't want to say spoiled, but we got everything that they gave my brother and I, everything that they couldn't have in their childhood.
It sounds like the American dream, that you were able to do it in Israel, but then your parents said, hey, we're going to one-up this, and we want to move to the most free country in the world, which is the United States of America. What made them want to do that at your age of 12? And how old was your brother?
My brother was 18 at the time.
Any other siblings?
Just me and my brother.
Your brother? Your brother's name?
Ariel.
Shout out to Ariel.
Ari, yeah.
Ari. Ari from the Entourage?
He wishes.
Oh.
Nah, he's a
I
good
love
guy.
that guy.
Great guy. We were talking earlier, CPA, so he knows his stuff. Really,
Tell him to call me. I have a financial planning
my best
practice.
friend there. But the opportunity, I'll tell you, the opportunities in Israel from my brother and I weren't the opportunities that you have here. In Israel, when you graduate high school, you have to go to the army for 3 years. It's a mandatory enlistment. And then, only then, most people travel, then you start your life. The opportunities there, there's...
At what age do you enroll?
In the army, right after high school.
So 17, 18?
Yeah, and it's a mandatory
so
enlistment.
18, 19, 20. So 21, essentially, you're kicking off your life.
22 usually.
22.
If that. A lot of people want to travel and, just kind of decompress.
Let me ask you about that, because I have an opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And my opinion isn't always the right opinion. I think in the U.S., what we're seeing now is a bunch of spoiled people who don't know how good they actually have it, right? Where over in other countries, like your parents saw, and people that were 18 and going away to the military, I personally wish that we had that here. I think that actually would have helped me more as an 18-year-old kid who was rebellious and had ADHD and probably ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. My wife, she is, what do they call that? Diagnosed. She's diagnosed me with me. Don't you believe that is something that is a good thing? Or how have you seen it affect your friends over there? I don't know. I'm asking.
Again, I think it's all situational. Again, I think you're going to have the spoiled or the people the kids that grow up similarly here and there. I really think it's about the values that are instilled in you, like from your parents or from your society. I mean, right now there's a lot of social media that I didn't have it. I mean, you didn't have it growing up. No. I didn't have it growing up. So I think that...
I got my first Facebook was, I was dating a girl, I was 19. She was finishing up her senior year at Seton Hall. I think she had Facebook and got me on. So I was 19 years old.
So I think that affects a lot of how we think nowadays, unfortunately. But I really think it's situational in terms of, to say that we're more spoiled in this country versus another. I mean, I can tell you stories about kids that I grew up with that are in a similar...
Did they go to the military, though?
They have to. It's mandatory there.
So I believe, in my opinion, that everybody should have to do that, because you're in a country that is here protecting you, especially over in Israel. Your military does a great job protecting you. We had a quick conversation earlier. Right. You believe that they're one of the top 10 militaries in the world, and there's a lot of danger. You guys have, these missiles being launched over into your country on a daily basis. I think every citizen in that country should know what it is to serve the military. We don't have to agree on it, but I wish that the U.S. would actually implement something like that.
In Israel, they don't have a choice. There's not enough people to protect the country. I mean, they're in constant war. even more so than the U.S. I mean, we have countries that we're in conflict with that are bordering Israel, and I think it's really there's again, it's a conversation for later, but I don't think that they have a choice. That's the bottom line. Here, there's obviously more people living in the United States, so
This is very interesting to me, and I want to go back to a Joe Rogan podcast where this chick was on lobbying essentially for the Palestinians, and it was something that really struck me as like, I never thought about it that way, but you guys are launching rockets into a country that needs to protect themselves. But we'll go back to that at the end to remind me. So you go to Marlboro High School.
Yes.
You then go to Rutgers. At Rutgers, at what point did you decide you wanted to go into the medical practice, more specifically being a dentist?
It was pretty early on. I would say like freshman, sophomore year. At the time, I always tell this, at the time, it was more of kind of like a process of elimination type of thing of what could I see myself doing. Now I'm super grateful I picked it. I love what I do. Every day I come to work, it's just a great vibe. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy running a practice. I enjoy interacting with my staff. I enjoy interacting with patients. When I picked it, I didn't think I would love it as much as I do now. I was like, this is going to be a good profession. You could make a good living and you get to work with your hands. So it's not like a desk job, which I definitely didn't want to do. But I'm super fortunate that I picked it because it's easy to come to work when you really, really enjoy what you do every day.
And you did med school at Rutgers as well?
Dental school, yes. I did that at Rutgers. It was UMD&J when I started. And they got bought out by Rutgers, so it's Rutgers.
Same entity.
Yeah, same thing.
Who was the president of Rutgers at the time?
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I dated a girl.
Shiana was the coach, I could tell you, and his first stint.
Yeah, and now he's back. He's back. He's pulling it back little by little. Do you go to Rutgers Audi Club? Do you go up to the games?
Not as much anymore.
We should go next year.
Let's do it.
Let's make a plan.
Let's do it.
So, obviously, you come out of Rutgers. Did well enough. What was your first move? Did you go work for another practice? How old were you at the time? Was it probably 24, 25?
Right after graduate, I went to do a residency for a year at Jersey Shore at the hospital right around here. And
Great NICU.
Great hospital.
Yeah.
Great experience there too. Learned a lot. Great mentors. Again, definitely the right decision because residency is not mandatory for us. And then I went right after 26. I'm thinking like, okay, you're young. This is the time to just bust your ass and work as much as possible, make a dent into the debt that I was in. And I literally worked 7 days a week. I even was looking for one of the Hasidic offices in Lakewood that I could work on Sundays because it's not even typical to work Sundays. But I ended up finding an office that I worked on Sundays just to work and again, at the time, I'm like, this is the time for me to work. I'm young, it's the time to work as much as possible and make as big a dent in the debt and also to get some savings. And every practice that I worked at, again, some of them I stayed longer than others. It was important to learn what I liked and what I didn't like. I always knew I wanted to own my own place at the end of the day. That's part of the reason that I picked dentistry, because you get to be your own boss. And
can I ask you this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Knowing that you wanted to own your own business,
right?
Did that stem back from like a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old that was going into college during college years? Because I promise you, as a guy who got in trouble in school and teachers would say, you need to listen to this, you need to listen to that, or when Avalon Carpet Tiling Flooring fired me because I didn't want to stack any more pallets of tile, I was tired. I was like, I'm going to be more successful than this guy who fired me. I'm going to be more successful than the teacher who told me. And they weren't wrong in trying to guide me into doing the right things and following the rules. But I do believe in people who are business owners or entrepreneurs are destined to be that from like birth. Are you of the same belief, or did that happen and develop after you learned that other people weren't doing it the way that you would actually do it?
I am of the same belief, but it's really, like I see my brother and my dad, And I also see some friends that I have, and they just get it. Like I don't know if you have the same experience, but I have friends, like I said, my brother, it's like they just get business. Like it's in their blood.
It's in their blood. They like it.
It wasn't in mine. That's probably one of the things that I'm working on the most.
So did your brother and your father have a lot to do with pushing you to do it?
It just, as a kid, again, teenager, 19, 20 in college, I'm like, oh, it'd be great. Like I could be my own boss. Like I think I don't know that everybody wants it, but I feel like a majority of people would love to be their own bosses because, again, you control your environment, so it's
flexibility,
right,
opportunity.
And it sounded to me like this would be great to have the opportunity to be my own boss and make my own decisions, and you don't have to work for someone else. So it was part of what attracted me to the field dentistry. Yes, not being able to work with your hands and treating people and not having a desk job, but being able to be your own boss. And right now I could give you a whole list of why this is awesome, because again, in my office, as a team, again, I know that I own the place, but as a team, we make a lot of decisions that for the betterment of the place and make the entire environment better for everybody else. But again, if you work for someone else,
you're not able to do that.
Yeah, when I was an associate, again, and it could be
you're a team player, you got to play for the team. You have very limited input into the ownership.
Depends where you work. Like I said, every place I worked in, I learned what I wanted to. I always do. I wanted to own. And every place that I worked at, I took certain aspects of what I wanted to bring into my practice, but also what I was like, this is never going to fly in my practice. Like I used to work in just toxic environments. And when you come to the bosses and you're like, she's just toxic to the team. And I'm not saying she's just a bad person. We're not seeing eye to eye. Like her vision of what needs to happen is not my vision. It doesn't mean she's a bad person, but it's just not me and her working at my assistant. It's not working out in the room. And they're just like, well, sorry, like just have to deal with it. And I'm like, it's not fun for me to come in. It's not fun for her. It's also making everybody else's life like miserable.
It's making more importantly, the patient. It's making the patient the most uncomfortable because a guy like me feels vibes.
Exactly. And I told myself,
the vibes have been awesome in your office. Actually, next time I come, I might just bring bourbon. We just party. I'll get drunk, and then you can work on my mouth. I won't feel it as much.
But I told myself I would never let that fly. Again, having a toxic work, because we deal, again, in my practice or in any business, you deal with enough bullshit throughout the day that's out of your control. Just saying some procedures don't go as planned. You get that rude patient on the phone. You have
billing issues, insurance companies, everything.
So there's stuff you can't really control. The stuff that I can control, I'm going to make sure that it's the best environment for everyone. I think in any business, the stuff that you can control, like why not eliminate any other bullshit, I would say, that's in the day.
Be super efficient, provide great service.
Exactly.
Be friendly, create an environment people want to come to.
Exactly.
I totally get it.
Exactly.
So you then at what age started your own practice, and I think you bought someone out here locally.
Correct.
To close to Point Pleasant. Was that in Brielle originally, or?
Yeah, it was in Brielle. The original office was, well, not the original. I mean, I bought the practice of Dr. Duragati, great guy. Unfortunately, he passed away since everything happened. He had a lot of medical issues, but the opportunity. I'll circle back a little bit on. When I was working as an associate, there was a lot of promises that were made to me in certain situations.
There always is, because they see that you were talented.
And there was certain situations, and I'm like, okay, like, maybe I would buy in, or certain opportunities that were promised but never were put to paper. And one day, I don't want to but it was just, I just had enough. And I just said, I'm going to look for my own office. And I didn't necessarily want to end up in Brielle. I was looking for the right opportunity for me to end in. There was an office in Brielle. The original office was right across the street from where La Mondina is right now. Mm-hmm. And it was a great opportunity. Unfortunately, like I said, the doctor was sick and he was looking to sell the practice and bring someone on board. And it had a lot of positives from a dental perspective in terms of acquisition, and it was the right
The
opportunity.
metrics made sense.
Yeah, and it made it made sense to me.
So I want to rewind you back before this. So this is something most people either in the rat race or young people get out of college at 22 or 24 like you did, 26. The stacking of the cash. And again, I don't mean to be too personal, but
Yeah.
people want to know, oh, he was given money. Was that money that you put up or you took a loan? How did you actually go and buy that practice out?
Just finance it. You just go to the bank and, you just pull out a loan. It's rare. Again, I'm not trying to say like, oh, we're so poor coming out of school. I mean, we do accrue a good amount of debt, like dental school, medical school, like a lot of school, even undergrad. You can go to certain schools now that's like $100,000.
Yeah,
Just to go-
150 grand and you're a teacher. And
Just-
no disrespect to teachers, but your starting salary is 45 grand or less.
And again, you're accruing this crazy amount of debt. And I'm not saying our job is not rewarding in any situation, but you have a lot of debt that you're accruing. So it's not like you have all these funds available to just go buy a practice. But again, I called the bank. I said, hey, I'm looking to buy this practice. Can we
Was it a
finance?
local bank?
I went to TD. I had a
TD?
guy there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Was it an SBA loan or?
Just
I like to give nuggets so people who are watching are trying
It
to
wasn't.
learn.
It was not an SBA. I was introduced again throughout the process. When I was 17, my brother just said TD is a good bank. Just open an account there. Again, I didn't know the reason why. Like I said, he's a CPA. I feel like his business runs in his blood. He just gets it. Don't really ask any questions. Like even when he does my taxes, it's like this is what makes sense. I'm like, do it. And then when it came down to buy the practice, I just went to where I was banking. I said, I need to get a loan. They gave me a loan. I was introduced to a good guy, and we've actually done multiple deals since then.
Good.
He's been really good. I mean, I financed my new building through him, all the build out. My brothers use him. I have friends that have used him. And
So funny enough, I had someone call me today from Spring Lake and was like, hey, my wife's launched this new business. Who do you bank with? And we talked about banking relationships and how important that is.
Absolutely.
Because they're seeing your revenues, they're seeing the money that comes in, they're
Exactly.
seeing your spend. So the bank that you're banking with is going to be the most open or closed to giving you an opportunity.
And it's also important that they're not. Again, I'm guessing that some of the listeners are not dentists or they don't know a lot about.
I have some clients. Actually, I have two clients I know specifically. Their whole family are dentists. They're doctors in the medical field. They're working in hospitals, but their kids are.
It's awesome.
Decided dentistry, and they do watch.
We'll grow it. We'll grow it to more.
I need to hook you up with the Marins. Good people.
With what?
The Marins, Carlos Marin and Myra Marin, are clients of mine. Their daughter's a dentist. Just came out of
Sounds good.
school about a year ago.
We'll definitely have to connect. But what I will say is a lot of when you go to get a loan or even any loan of any type in business, the guy Chris, who I work with in TD,
Give Chris a shout out. What's his last name?
Chris Stasic.
Is he a local guy?
He's
Where
in
is his
Philly.
team? Philly?
Yeah, he's
All
in
right.
Philly, but
Is your brother in Philly?
my brother is up in North Jersey.
North Jersey. How do you get hooked up with a Philly guy?
Me?
No, him.
Because through me.
All right.
I hooked him up. But I presented to him different opportunities, and he evaluated, and he said, this works, this doesn't. So what I was getting at earlier, dentists usually get loans very easily. Banks know that.
Predictable revs.
Right, dentistry, it's tough for the business to fail. You may not make as much, you may not be super successful, but for it to completely tank, they go by certain metrics. I know that when I was in school, they told us like dentistry have like the second lowest default rate in the country. So pretty much banks, they just give money to dentists all the time. And they know that it's not going to be a bad investment.
I have a few successful doctors, not to cut you off, that have said, man, I wish I would have just been a dentist.
Probably right.
Yeah.
With the lifestyle, that's why I made the decision to go into dentistry. But as I was saying, the banks give you loans to dentists all the time. Even I have colleagues that through my rep that he tells me about, and they're just giving loans like left and right for people that have literally been out of school for like a year. They don't even know what they're doing. Chris, I presented him opportunities, and he said, this makes sense, this doesn't. Like this, the cash flow makes sense, the price makes sense. When I bought the practice, I brought him a second practice. So this practice is like 5 minutes down the road. Should I buy it? And he was like, there's not enough cash flow. It doesn't make sense. You're gonna, so it's important that when you use a bank guy, you have someone that they're guiding you in the right way to make sure that you're making a good investment, not just lending you money because they can or whatever. It seems like the right opportunity. So whoever
you're dealing with and helping you with your finances.
Exactly. They should evaluate whether this is a sound investment for you and not just give you the money.
Well, a lot of times they want a commission. They want to sell the loan or they want to sell the deal.
Correct.
Or the product. And building a really good banking relationship to round out this segment is something that's extremely important. In all businesses, dental practice down to the landscaper or whoever it is.
Absolutely.
So you then go into your own practice, you buy this guy out,
right.
You then say, hey, I'm a guy that's anal, I'm OCD, I want to have my own new building, I want to build it the way I want the flow to be the flow, I want TVs. I'm telling you, for those people who are afraid of the dentist, you need to go to Dr. Gamburg, Ilan's office. Michelle's great. Adrian, right?
I could name them all.
I mean, they're all...
Adrian, yeah.
They're all great, and they do an excellent job. I mean, but when my man's in there, putting these veneer caps on or whatever I got, I was watching a movie above. It was on the ceiling. I've never seen a dentist put... I'm sure that's not crazy outside the box, but I've never experienced it.
Again, it's a matter of making...
And you gave me the remote, you made me comfortable.
It's the patient experience. As I said, when I first, again, the 28, 29-year-old me that bought the practice, as we talked a little bit before we started the podcast, the place that I bought, the physical location wasn't very glamorous. It was very old school, looked like your grandma's living room. The opportunity made sense, but the physical location wasn't anything to show off, let's put it that way. And I told my girls, we're gonna build this practice on the way people are treated when they walk through the door and the type of care that they get. So that's continued into the new facility that we built that you've been coming to. But the TVs on the ceilings and all that, it's just all about the patient experience and making sure.
Dogs going around, which are beautiful, beautiful, cute dogs, and they're hyperallergenic.
My pups are there.
So after you went through working for these other practices, learning what you loved and didn't love about them, you knew that you wanted to own your own practice. Right. You bought out this practice in Brielle. It was a great opportunity for you. Yep. You started out in a physical location that you didn't necessarily love, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're a new person coming into business. Right. That guy you bought the practice from did the same thing 35 years prior, right?
I think he started from scratch, but it was like maybe even more, maybe 40 years ago.
My point is he built that out brand new.
Years ago,
right? And everything, our homes, cars, they always need updating.
Right.
You decided to update it going into a new building and obviously continuing what you're doing. Now, 4 years later, what really makes you unique?
So the reason I would have updated it back then when I even took over the practice, but at the time I was just renting. And I went to the landlord and I said, I'd love to stay. I mean, the location was great. And I said to him, I'd love to stay, but you could tell the place looks outdated. What can we work out in terms of a deal of, you paying for some of the remodel or, work something out in terms of rent, because I'd like to update the place. It was, it was an older building. And his answer was, you could do it at your own cost. I'm not giving you anything. It doesn't make sense. I'm not going to put money to improve your building without getting any guarantees. His whole answer was just, you could do whatever you want. I'm not giving you anything. At that point, I realized it's time to go look for a place that's mine. I mean, I knew I need to go somewhere else. It didn't necessarily have to be buying it or renting it, but I knew I had to go somewhere else. Found a great opportunity through two really great brokers. They do a lot of business down the shore. Mike Jensen.
Shout out to Jensen.
You know him?
Jensen's my boy, dude.
So Jensen,
he got me my first office downtown Seagirt from the Mulligan family, Shaw Mulligan, Laura Mulligan. Shout out to the Mulligans. Great, great people. And Jensen, actually, I have a beautiful office in Red Bank, which is very fancy and I never use.
Okay.
And I actually have a home base here in Point that Jensen gave me a little DL tip. Jensen's the man. He knows everybody.
So he got me, I told
Him
him.
and Richel?
Him and Richel, we were looking for a new place, and he showed me a bunch of places. The building that I'm currently in, it never even went on the market. Richel actually knew the owners. They were like telling him, we're thinking of moving. It was an engineering firm beforehand. And he was like, I know the perfect guy for you. We met one night, I made an offer the next day, and we agreed on the price the day after that.
That's awesome.
And it never went to market.
Great move by Jensen and Richel, and as well as you.
Great move, and I'm grateful. Again, the location's great.
It's a beautiful office, dude. I love the color scheme, the TVs.
Everything that we did there, again, I wanted to make the experience different for the patients, and I'll get into that as the second part. But you asked me
What makes you unique?
what makes us unique. So, as I was telling you off camera before, the physical location that I was in initially, it wasn't something that I was very proud of. It wasn't anything to advertise.
Listen, when you're a guy that wants to win, you want the best. There's nothing wrong with that.
So I told my girls, or the entire staff, we're going to be successful by the way we treat people, giving customer service they're not going to get anywhere else. From the moment that they call the office until they show up, until they leave, they're going to get exceptional customer service, and they're going to get exceptional care in the chair. That was the most important thing. If they come through the door, they're not going to be wowed by the facility, but they're going to come back and say, I was treated in a way that I've never been treated before.
Time out. So off camera, Matt Glowacki is here. Matt
Yes.
went to your old office.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know Big Matty, he's the big guy who works for me. Great swimmer, great track player, big teddy bear. But Matt is petrified of the dentist, and I know that. And he goes, you got to go to Dr. Gamburg. And he was in your old office.
Right.
Did you even experience his new office at that time?
Not yet.
No, you didn't. You have now, right?
Not yet.
He has a cracked tooth. He's got to go.
You got to come in. I'll give you a tour. We'll show you around, man. It's a beautiful place.
This guy was adamant that I see you, and Matt, he's like a brother to me. He knows me too. He's like, this is the guy you got to go to, and that was with
thankful.
your old building. So a lot of times, people like you and I, like right now, last winter, I was so unproud to bring people in my backyard for the podcast during the winter.
There you go. Yeah.
Because I know in the summer, my garden's massive, the chairs are laid out, the pool's open, the filter's going. It just looks that much better. But in our head, we want the best for the people coming into our environment. But a lot of times, it's really you they buy into, and obviously your staff.
Absolutely. But it just didn't feel, like I said, the place didn't feel right
I get
for
it.
us. It was an older place. So I always knew I wanted to make it my own. Let's put it that, because we also took over a space that was existing. You can make little changes, but I wanted to make it my own. The opportunity came about with Mike and Steve, and everything that we did there, I was looking at offices, multiple offices of colleagues, and kind of took aspects that I liked or didn't like, obviously I left them out, into the current space that we have. And everything that's there, it's designed to match what we've been doing before. So it's a beautiful facility, brand new, which I would like it to flow obviously with the customer service, with the skills that we've given before. And I really, really didn't want it to feel like a doctor's office, because a lot of people are afraid of the doctor's office, so that they come in and you don't want to give them the people that are scared. You don't want them to feel
more specifically afraid of the dental.
the dentist or any medical facility. I
I got to ask you a question on camera. I got to do it.
Let's do it.
Ryan's real. What is up with the suicide rate of dentists?
What is up with the suicide rate?
It's supposedly like the highest suicide rate.
Yeah, it's an
in-
old study.
It's an
I
old
would say.
study?
Yeah,
Like
it's
how
not,
old?
Not that recent. I think it depends on the people. I mean, I'll tell you. I asked a psychologist.
Like, you seem like a happy guy. Like, I don't think it bothers you.
I had a family friend that was a psychologist. I asked her about this. It is an old study. I don't know how old, but I don't know that these numbers are true today. But she was saying, in terms of the reason a dentist's job is so stressful is because it's like such a detail-oriented profession. You're working in such small spaces. and you don't really have a team. Most dentists don't have that team environment, because I made the argument, surgeons do the same thing, but at least they have a staff around them in the surgery room, so there's more interaction.
Surgeons come in, they put on the scrubs, they take out the tumor, and they leave.
Yeah, but they also have, the nurses, they have,
That's what I'm saying.
they have interaction.
Everything else is prepped.
Here, it's like you're working in this very stressful environment, as I was told, and you don't really...
You mean you have patients like
Ryan? And you have one
Ryan?
assistant that you can maybe talk to.
You have patients like Ryan that come in and don't want to put the chew guard on?
I love again, I don't think it's a very recent study, but the listener, if I'm wrong, they can correct me on that.
I took you off track. I just had to ask you. It's been in my head since you started talking.
It's all good.
So you actually were able to take something for the nuggets of people who watch as small business owners, more specifically people who may want to go into the dental practice. You had a vision of what your practice wanted to look like, how it flowed, how it operated, how the client felt the experience was, client/patient, and you have done that based on what you've told me you wanted to do.
Right.
I am a patient. These are veneers from you, and you did an excellent job.
I appreciate it.
I don't think I'm that difficult, but I'm not the most easy patient because I'm a control freak. You're sitting back in a chair and someone's got these, doc, hit me with, every time. You Ryan, you feel anything? You want me to hit you with some more drugs? I'll shoot it up there. Your staff, you guys have done an excellent job. And I want to more so talk about you and the way you look at the world, business.
Let's do it.
And everything. But I promise you, I don't give this type of recommendation heavily to dental practices ever. Like you really do a good job. I'm not just saying that because you're sitting in my backyard, dude.
I appreciate it.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
And at one point, I had a rush meeting that I had to get to that was big money, and you had another doctor come in and start working on me. You finished it up. You guys got me out of there at 2:00. I had a meeting at 2:30, and I was able to crush the meeting. And you guys do an excellent job. You go above and beyond to create a great experience. Years ago, one of the most successful guys inside of an advisory practice that I've studied, we were sitting at the bar one night up at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club, and I said to him, what do you really think it takes to have a super successful financial practice? He goes, be trustworthy and create a great experience. And you have done that in your world. So moving along, because I don't want to bore the people with dental, right? We're all going to want to go shoot ourselves. Joking. I want to talk a little bit about the world. I want to talk a little bit about Israel. I want to talk a little bit about how you look at things.
Okay.
And we were talking earlier, and we said we would circle back to it. We were talking about the military. We were talking about Israel having to send their civilians, into the military for the first 3 years after graduating high school. How do you perceive what's going on in Palestine and what goes on in Israel and how that all happens? I just can't vision that. All right, Ryan's he's got pork coffee. I'm hanging out with these very successful Bayhead people, and all right, Ryan, hit the deck underneath the coffee table because a missile's coming in from whoever. Talk about that lifestyle. Do you remember any of those memories? Does your friends talk about those memories still today?
It's not a pleasant way to live. I know I talk to my friends all the time. I also will say, you're getting it from my side of the story. I don't have perspective on the other side, but it's very unfortunate. I mean, I'm hopeful that this conflict will end very soon. I don't know that they haven't come to the table with an agreement that would work for both sides, but I'm hopeful that it'll end. It's not whichever side that we agree with, and obviously, I'm biased. I was raised in Israel, but it's not a way to live on either side. Being afraid that rockets are gonna land in your country, then the army goes into the Palestinian territories. It's a very I wish that there would be a resolution.
That leads me to my next thing that I was talking about, which was this girl who was pro-Palestine. I think she's actually banned from Israel. And what she was saying is the guy from Long Island, this is a real thing, could roll into Palestine and be like, my family owned this 3 generations ago. You got to get out of my house. Have you heard anything like that goes on in Palestine? They talked about, although it's in Palestine, but it's controlled by the Israel military. You know, they have roadblocks, they have a whole military, I'm sure, section coned off, for lack of a better term.
I haven't heard of, again, I haven't
I'm not
heard,
an expert in this. I literally am just asking.
I haven't heard anything like that in terms of they're coming and saying it's theirs. I mean, it's news to me. I would have to look into that. I definitely.
They were talking about a Long Island guy who was Jewish, was rolling into Palestine in the slums and saying, like, hey, you're sitting on my property. This is my property.
I haven't heard of anything like that. I don't think they're going to move either way. But
we got to put the link to that podcast at the bottom of our podcast.
Listen, I would love to hear about it. It's not something I'm familiar with, but I'd love to, to listen to it and see what happened with the outcome, or if that was the case even there.
You should be a politician.
I should be a politician?
Yeah.
You want me to?
You should be a politician. So, when you are a business owner and you're starting out and you're laying out the cash, we've talked about, hey, that's one of my friends. Hey, Johnny. You talk about the sacrifices you make, right? You're a guy that lives small. You drive a very conservative car. You're not spending crazy money on it. You're trying to grow your practice. We talk about the political environment that goes on in the U.S. today and how it affects. And I don't care if it's left, right.
Right.
You don't care if the person is left or right in your chair ever, because you're not going there. You're there. You're like a mechanics. You're rolling up to the garage. My alternator is dead. Can you replace it and get me back going? My tooth is dead. Can you replace it and get me back going? But as a small business owner, talk about the difficulties that you see coming from the current political environment.
Ooh, that's a tough, it's a good question in terms of the current political environment. I mean, I see it in terms of there's a lot of talks that we're going into a recession. I'll tell you, there's a lot of my colleagues are concerned about that.
I think we've been in a recession.
That's going to get a lot worse. Let's put it that way. A lot of my friends are very concerned. A lot of what they're talking about, what are we going to do? The business is going to go down. Different ways of other sources of income. They're considering going into teaching and speaking engagements. I think that's definitely on the back of everyone's minds. I mean,
do you worry about doing that, or do you worry about just keep winning?
I don't worry about a lot of things. That's part of it is what my father instilled in me, but also I try to live a very stress-free life and control what I can control and not worry about what I can't control. That's something I can't control. We could just kind of roll with the punches, but in my mind, I have ways that we're going to be able to persevere if it really hits as bad as people are potentially saying, which we don't even know. There's predictions all the time of things that are going to happen. If it hits that bad, then I already have strategies of how we can persevere. But
have you ever seen an alligator put a piece of prey in his mouth, and they do that slam thing that they do, and they pretty much knock the animal out before they kill him and eat him? When I started here in recession, that's what I did. I put recession in my mouth, and I led for people, and I smashed it side to side, and I threw it out there. If you were hyper-focused on what you're good at, if you were hyper-focused on what you love, and to your point, if you were hyper-focused on the things that you could control, I'm an open book. I put $200,000 into the pit, the podcast, WCC over the last 18 months. I'm a young guy. I'm not sitting around on millions of dollars of liquidity. That's a lot of money to do, and it's because I believe in what I'm doing. And if you are a small business owner, from my perspective, I know that I posed this question to you, but I have passion about it. Like, you're just gonna fucking keep going, and it doesn't matter. You're gonna ride the wave. You're gonna get hit by the wave sometimes, and
absolutely. And I'll tell you, you always in my profession or in dentistry, there's always, and I'm not generalizing, but there's always excuses or reasons for why you would have a slow month or not a good month. A lot of times, and again, this is just what I hear. In April, people are paying, they don't have enough free cash because they're getting ready to pay their taxes, or over the holidays, they need to save money for gifts. And then in the summer, they're traveling. Like every month has a reason of why this could be a slow month.
Sounds like they're in a simulation.
But I never take those. Every month for us, we're going to do well. Even, I know you mentioned Michelle and Adrian and everybody else at the office.
Michelle is great.
At the end, they're all great. I know we haven't
I know
mentioned
they're all
everybody.
great, but
I'm
I'm just talking about my personal experience. Michelle was great. I went in and I said, Michelle, we're going back to your practice, but this is how I work. I jump around.
Sounds good.
Michelle, I know that I had problems as a young kid taking care of my teeth, my parents not always having the best practices of going to the dentist. Like, you don't need to hit me with a $100,000 bill. Like, let's progressively. So she come in and she said, hey, this is what the doctor thinks we should first start with.
Yep.
It's most aesthetically how will help your teeth take care of a pain that I had. It was a legit pain in the front of my tooth. And without hesitation, we essentially stroked a $9,000 check to your practice, some insurance, some from my pocket, without hesitation because of how you handled how I told you to handle me. And that was due to her, in my opinion.
She's great. And like I said, you haven't met, or maybe you have met, but we have, everybody in the practice is really great, and I could name each one of them individually. But going back to what we were talking about, at the end of August, or even early September, I forget, a lot of times September can be like people are going back to school, it can turn out to be like, or even October, it could be like a slower month. I came to them and I said, listen, this is going to, how we finish out the year is going to set up for success in 2023. We're going to crush it every month from September till December because we're not going to give excuses of why this could have been bad.
Yeah, everybody else is doing that.
A lot of people are taking it backseat. Okay, like it's the end of the year, like we can take it easy. No, we're gonna make sure that every month is going to be a great month until the end of the year because that's what's going to set up for success in 2023.
Yeah, and momentum starts right.
And everything's been great. And it's all mindset too. Again, it's how the team comes together when you have staff members that are out and everybody, and you think the care or the production could go lower, but we all just come together, and when everybody is on the same page, it's so much easier to do that. Going back to, being on the same page, not having a toxic environment.
So I want to bring up a recent reel that it was, why am I drawing a blank right now? The big guy, Rogan's friend. He's a philosopher.
Like big guy?
Peterson, Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson shared a clip where Kanye West was talking about a kid who was told he couldn't go on the coffee table. And it was also Steve Jobs talking about roadblocks that are put in front of you as a young kid that are told to not do this. Mm-hmm. And they both were saying different things, but saying the same exact thing. And to sum up the reel, what they were trying to say is that society puts you in traffic. Society puts you in a recession. They put you, dude, it's exactly what you're saying. They put you where they want to put you. So if you want to believe it's a recession, that's on you. My goals are still going. I know for a fact I'm going to have one of the largest quarters that I've had in a long time, the first quarter of 2023. So if there's a recession out there, my company and my people don't feel it.
No, but a lot of it, and I try to teach my staff about this, and they're going to listen, or if anybody listens, I think you're a big fan of Gary Vee.
I like Gary Vee. I think he talks too much during his podcast.
But I'll say some of the stuff that he says, I think accountability
you
is
like
really...
him because he's Russian?
No, I just think some of the stuff he says makes sense to me. Some of it, I'm not going to say I'm his biggest fan, but a lot of the stuff he says makes sense. Accountability is really big, I feel like. And my girls, everybody that comes to my practice, people complain about different things in their life, whether it's professional, whether it's personal.
Relationship.
If you take accountability of your life and you don't play the victim in any situation, I'm in this situation, or I'm in this, I tell them all the time, if you're not happy to come to work in this practice, we should figure out an exit strategy. I want you to come in here and have a good experience. And even the people that...
Extreme ownership.
Even the people that don't own their practices, they're fully in charge of their lives, whether it's personal or whatnot. So like you said, with the recession, we're in full control of what we're doing. Whether I give up and say, hey, a recession is coming, and let's just give up and whatever. We're just going to accept the losses, or we're going to say, how can we tackle this? And again, there's different ways to handle this. Yes, if disposable income isn't as available, people still need to take care of their teeth and be healthy. So yes, maybe the cosmetic cases we're not going to do as many cosmetic cases. People are not going to come and ask for veneers or full
Doesn't
mouth
mean you don't
pivot, but they still have pain, they still break teeth.
Still need cleaning.
Correct. So we can work through it to make sure that we're still successful during these months. And some people will always have that disposable income to do the work that they'd like to, but there's always ways to fight it. You could always take on more insurance if you wanted to, or take less. Right now, I'm working towards we still take insurance, but I'm trying to cut down the plans because we're just so busy that the lower reimbursement plans, it just doesn't make sense to take them when we have a wait list of getting people in. Why are we doing the work for less when I could bring people in that I can spend more time and I don't have to rush because of the insurance reimbursement there? But
do you
again,
like my dental plan?
Dental plans, yeah.
Delta. Do you like my Delta plan?
Do I like it?
Yeah, is it good?
It's middle of the road.
No, I do.
But you could always take more. What I'm saying is when people have insurance, they tend to. So there's always ways to fight things and make sure that we're still going to be successful during, like I said, during a recession or during any time. So
no, that's called winning. It's called winning. Anytime you want to win, you're gonna, let's just say you're Tom Brady and the Patriots, and you guys have.
You want to talk about the Eagles tonight?
They just lost to the Cowboys, so we could talk about the Eagles if you want. Are you an Eagles fan?
I am an Eagles fan.
So let's talk about the Eagles then. So if you were a winning team, you would figure out how to pivot and win without Jalen Hurts. You didn't find a way to do that. You allowed the Cowboys to stay in the game.
True.
The Cowboys came back, and something that was taught to me a long time ago by a very, very good friend of mine, Brian Jennis. Shout out to Big Bry. He's been involved in football and all different types of organizations for a long time. He said, good teams find ways to win, bad teams find ways to lose, no matter what the situation is on the field.
It's true.
So if I can relate it to sports, and we could use the Philly, or I'll go back to the Patriots, if Tom Brady goes down, the team should be able to adapt and the defense should pick up. The defense should score a TD. The backup quarterback should be able to throw a touchdown. And the Patriots did that well. They did that really well. I mean, what was that year? Matt Castle jumped in, and the guy was a rock star, went somewhere else and failed miserably. Many other quarterbacks, what's his face on the Niners? The guy stepped in as the backup quarterback, did an excellent job, left and went to the Niners, didn't have as much success.
But in the same situation, every business, or I believe and I'm going through this transition in my practice, and I tell this to the girls that work for me, that everybody has to be replaceable. And it's not because, someone things happen, but God forbid something happens and they have to go on a medical leave for X amount of time, or they get into an accident or something.
You gotta have a bench.
You can't just say, oh, we're not going to do things the way we've been doing things. Somebody else has to step in their place. Not every business has that ability. It could be, they may be a smaller business.
How do you create that bench for yourself?
You have to cross-train people to do different tasks. So let's say, if Michelle is out, then I have to have Lindsay or Adrian or Mary Beth. We have so many girls, they have to learn what she's doing. They may not be able to execute it on that level, but as long as the tasks can be completed, we can sustain that situation. And currently I'm going through a transition in my practice where a lot of the dentistry was being done by me. And when I wasn't there, it wasn't as productive. And I have really great associates that are, the level of care is going to continue, whether it's me or it's them. And that's the goal, so that if I can't be there at all times, we're still the same level of care, the same experience, everything is being continued, whether I'm there or not.
Listen, I get it. I've multiple businesses I'm running now, and there's people that need to step in my place and be able to do at least 95% of the job that I do, and I totally get it. Rounding this all out, the questions I like to ask are, if there was one thing that you can say to a young business owner or dentist or anybody, and then some local businesses that you want to give a shout out to, most likely in the Brielle, Point Pleasant, Seagirt area. So starting with the first question, if you can tell a young entrepreneur one thing, what is it that you would say to them?
A young entrepreneur, I would say, don't chase. It might sound a little, maybe I'm looking for the different words. I wouldn't chase the money. I would try to find something that you're really good at, that you really, really enjoy. And if you're good at it and you enjoy it, you're going to be able to make a good living.
You're able to live the way you want to live. Yeah, find purpose, maybe.
Purpose, but also, when I made the decision to be a dentist, part of the reason of what led me there is the lifestyle I could live by being, a physician or doctor. Going back to thinking of, the 18-year-old me, it wasn't the right motive. I'm super grateful that I picked this way because I do love what I do and obviously make a good living. But I would really try to find something that you really love doing and you're good at. Keyword there, because you could love something and you could just be bad at it. If I wouldn't be a good chef, believe me, like cooking is not.
Do you like cooking?
I'm trying to get into it, but it's not
What's
something
your best
I could.
meal?
I'm pretty basic, just like chicken, steak.
Grilling. What is your?
Buddy of mine who's a chef turned me into the cast iron, so just kind of not grilling on everything. Everything goes in the
Where
cast
is he
iron.
a chef at?
He was a chef at a country club.
All right.
Yeah, he was. He's actually my supply rep. He used to be a chef in a previous life for him.
I like it.
Yeah. Shout out to Alan.
Shout out to Alan.
He's a good guy.
Second question: business owners in the local area that you want to give a shout out to, that you eat their food, go to the restaurant, drink, a cocktail or two there, or anything. Anything that you would like to give a shout out to that support your business.
I would give a shout out to the people that, made everything happen for me. As far as, Mike and Steve and Chris, who worked in TD. Yeah, they've been like super instrumental for everything that I've done. So I definitely want to say
shout out to Mike Jensen, Steve Ritchell. You do a great job. Obviously, I've never met you, but Mike Jensen knows
a good guy.
Everybody. Any type of deal that is going on around here, especially in the medical field. My good friend Justin Huddy owns a company called Radius Inc. It is essentially like monitoring your health or monitoring your loved one's health, like you would monitor your credit. Radius Inc., check it out. They're going to blow up soon. Jensen's been a big backbone of that. Yeah. Mike Jensen is a great guy. And if you're looking for any type of commercial realty in the Northern Ocean or Southern Monmouth area, you need to talk to Mike Jensen.
Yep, he's been...
Listen, I appreciate your time. I tried to get you on some more politics. You were a really good politician about shifting around it. To me, you are a unique guest to me. I have never had somebody sit in this seat that was I've had Jewish people sit in the seat, but not somebody who was from Israel. I think that's really cool. I truly support Israel through and through.
Appreciate it.
And I like that story, and I like to try to pick someone's brain who may come from another country like Israel and how they look at things. But I think you're really an open-minded guy, and I think that you think the right thing is the right thing. And again, I really appreciate you coming here. You have a great practice. I'm going to continue to push you as much as I already have.
Thank you for having me. It's been
Thank you.
awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.